A surprise breakthrough from the African Union. Warring sides in Ethiopia have agreed to end the civil war. The deal was signed by Ethiopia's government and the Tigray Liberation Front on Wednesday. The two-year conflict in Ethiopia's northern Tigray region has left thousands of people dead, millions displaced, and brought famine to the region. Now, the deal goes beyond just a ceasefire and also promises to resume desperately needed humanitarian aid.
An unexpected breakthrough after a week of peace talks. Ethiopia was set to mark 2 years of war this Friday. Delegates say the deal, which was mediated by the African Union, is the beginning of the end to a conflict that's seen hundreds of thousands of people killed.
It's not the end of peace process, but the beginning of it. Implementation of the peace agreement signed today is critical to the success of the process.
The war is essentially over who has control of the northern Tigray region. Both the government in Addis Ababa and the Tigray People's Liberation Front have claimed authority. Both parties have now signed off on an immediate ceasefire after an end to hostilities negotiated in March broke down after just 5 months. But there are differing interpretations of what the agreement means and how it will be monitored. As they signed off, both sides emphasized the importance of fully implementing the deal.
In the spirit of this agreement, the people of Ethiopia expected more than the text of this agreement. Our children who have been away from schools need to go back to schools or to whatever is left of our schools.
Ethiopia is also facing a humanitarian crisis and famine. The hope now is that this urgently needed peace deal will hold.
Samuel Getachew is a journalist in the Ethiopian capital, Addis Ababa, and he joins me now for more on this. It's good to have you on the program, Samuel. This is a significant development. Tell us a little bit more about how this agreement was reached, and does it resolve the issues that led to the fighting in the first place? All right.
Hello?
All right, I believe Samuel is back. I just want to get a sense if we can actually get back to him on the line there, or we're going to...
I'm back.
All right, okay. So we've been unsuccessful in establishing that connection with Samuel Getachew in Addis Ababa. We'll see if we can get that back to continue that conversation on this deal that's been reached to end the war in Ethiopia. Let's get you now a sense of the other major headlines today around the world. Authorities say nearly 20 million people could face hunger in Nigeria after widespread flooding damaged homes, infrastructure, and displaced millions of people. Seasonal rains triggered severe floods that have wiped out large swathes of farmland. Communities are struggling to salvage remnants from this year's harvest. And the U.S. President Joe Biden warns that democracy in the U.S. is under attack. This as he addressed the nation ahead of next week's midterm elections. Biden called on voters and candidates to take a stand against anyone promoting political violence. He pointed to former President Donald Trump as the driver of a campaign to discredit the electoral process. A United Nations report says some of the world's most famous glaciers will disappear by 2050 due to global warming. Glaciers in World Heritage sites such as the Dolomites in Italy, the Yosemite and Yellowstone parks in the US, and Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania are likely to vanish in a generation. Good news, we've re-established that connection to Samuel Getachew, the journalist talking to us from Ethiopia. Sam, I had just asked you the question about the significance of this development. Just tell our viewers a little bit about how the agreement was reached, and does it resolve the issues that led to the fighting in the first place?
It really is a big achievement in terms of where this was headed. A few days ago, the Ethiopian Prime Minister was saying they've been put under pressure by Western nations to agree to compromise on some of the disagreements they've been having with the TPLF. The Ethiopian government has been insisting that TPLF is a terrorist organization, that they're being forced to deal with a terrorist organization. So to see Getachew Reda, who represented the TPLF and also the Ethiopian side, represented by the advisor to the Prime Minister, Redwan Hussein, is a big achievement by itself. But how it's going to be implemented is the question that needs to be answered in the days to come.
So what are the next steps now? Speaking about the implementation, where do things go from here?
Well, as the head of the delegation of the TPLF said, there hasn't been any school open for the young people of Tigray, as well as Amhara and Afar. And there has to be an establishment of the banking sector that has been closed since for a year now, especially in Tigray. So there has to be a system to reopen the region of Tigray and bring it back to where it was. Because as you mentioned previously, even famine is becoming a reality, again, not just in Tigray, but also in Amhara and Afar. So the government is expected to lay out a foundation where this would lead the country in the days and weeks forward.
And how much confidence is there that this deal will hold and that the war is now really over?
Well, you know, the Ethiopian government and the TPLF had signed an agreement. Now, when you implement it, you know, there has been at least 600,000 people that have died all over Ethiopia since this conflict began. So there has to be some kind of system to let Ethiopians understand that the country, the nation of Ethiopia is moving forward and they're not going to look forward. But there has to be a system to understand exactly what happened and how to address some of the misgivings of the victims. And they're not just in the hundreds and thousands, they're in the millions. 3 million Ethiopians have been displaced as a result of this conflict. And the government has to be able to answer it somehow. But the question is, will Ethiopia have enough resources to investigate exactly what happened so the nation could move forward?
All right, that's Samuel Getachew talking to us from the Ethiopian capital, Addis Ababa. Thank you, Samuel.
Thank you.